but people don't necessarily relate to what you went through if they didn't go through the same thing. But there's a small, finite number of issues that human beings deal with as a result of the traumas and challenges we face. That is what everybody relates to. It transcends language, racial, ethnic, cultural barriers. Everybody speaks the language of pain and suffering and struggle.
Welcome back to My Best Val. I'm your host, Diana Lanham, and my guest today is Brian Fleming. Brian is a combat wounded war veteran and international speaker. After being severely wounded by a suicide bomber in Afghanistan, Brian turned his survival story into a message of hope that he shared with people all over the world. This was such a great conversation, and I am so excited to have you all meet Brian and hear his amazing story.
Hey, hello.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and I can see you.
Nice to meet you, Brian.
Yeah, you too, Diana.
It's so funny how technology is like, I cannot function without it. I'm completely connected to everything, right? But it either works or it doesn't. Do you know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah.
And I truly believe that laptops have evolved and they're sentient and they can tell when they can fuck with you. Like they're like, excuse my language, but like they can say, you know what?
No need to excuse, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see how far we can ramp her up. Let's just not have the sound work today. Just to see what, if she's, her head spins around.
You yell out loud when you're mad. Why can't I just get a microphone that works? Then you get flooded with Facebook ads that say, want a microphone that works? It's like, what are the odds?
100%. You know what I think is wild? I think it's so weird when you're not near your phone. Like you're not near your phone. And I don't have a smart house. I don't do the whole Alexa
I don't
thing.
either.
Yeah, I was at a friend's house that had it, and they were constantly going, no, Alexa, no. And they're like, Diane, you can't say that. I'm like, what? They're like, no, you can't say ambulance. You can't say, there were certain things. Or, what I did is we were in Palm Springs and we were having cocktails. And we knocked over the drink. And I was like, oh my God, 911, drink down, margarita down, whatever. And they're like, no. Alexa, no 911, no 911.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I know. And I was like, you guys, you can't do that. Like I couldn't live that way, especially me.
It's way too connected. Yeah.
Way too connected. But the fact that when you're not even near your phone and your laptop isn't on, and maybe you even were thinking of something. I'm thinking, okay, maybe did I mutter it under my breath? Because all of a sudden you have ads. And I'm like,
I've thought that too. Yeah.
Has that happened to you?
I've more and more as the years have gone on. It's like I haven't said it, but I've thought it and saw it. Then I'm like, okay. But I haven't searched it. I didn't say it. Just very subtly though. Which if I were a mastermind behind it, I would be very subtle. You can't be too obvious.
Look at us with our conspiracy theories.
I know.
Brian, I'm telling you, there's a couple times when that's happened, and it is freaky to me. It's like I haven't had a conversation about that. I haven't said it on my phone. I haven't texted it. It's nowhere out there in the ether what I was thinking about. And now I have all of these ads that I have not had before are showing up. It's creepy.
So how are they capturing thoughts technologically?
How are they capturing it? You know what? That is a whole nother discussion that I would love to have. Yeah, I would love to do a deep dive.
I'm not the authority, but I'll be your other co-conspirator, that's for sure. I saw Terminator 2 when I was a kid. All right? I know all about Cyberdyne systems.
Oh my God.
And the machines.
I know, it's happening.
Well, do you remember what the date was when all that went down? It was way in the future. It was like 2024 or 2027 or something.
I thought it actually already happened. Because wasn't there... I could have swore that there was a whole thing on the internet that this is the year that it all, that they're saying, if you remember Terminator, this is the year that it all happened. Because I remember watching it and that just seemed like so far in the future, right? And now it's in the past. That's crazy.
I'm sitting here in Boca Raton, Florida, and I'm happy to say the machines don't run the place entirely.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm in Seattle.
You're in Seattle.
I'm in the mothership.
Yeah.
Yes, everything. Amazon, Microsoft, everything is here.
Starbucks. Yeah.
Starbucks. Oh yeah, I used to work at Starbucks. I actually took a sabbatical to. I was working corporate. I've been an executive assistant in operations most of my life, and so I was working in the corporate office, and I really loved it. I have to say, I really loved it. I was at Microsoft, and then I went to Starbucks, and Starbucks is like an ad agency. It's got more of that kind of flair. And I worked in the technology, which it makes this whole thing about my Yeti even more agonizing. I worked in the technology. I was working for various systems, but when I left October 2022, I was working in cybersecurity, and it was, man, the stuff that was happening that you guys don't even know about is just, especially because the hackers now, there are some men and women in hoodies, in a dark room plotting the end of the world, right? But a lot of times what's happening now is the hackers are becoming consortiums and are pulling together. And so you have some of because they're business now. It's a business, like a big business. It's always been a business,
Yeah.
but instead of having these just single individuals, they're all pulling together. And so you have so not only two things, not only are cybersecurity engineers, analysts, everything, they are always, it doesn't matter what company you're in, the cybersecurity teams are the smartest people on the planet. They just
Oh, I
are.
agree. Yeah.
And so then you have these uber cybersecurity techies, that can scam, that are pulling their brain power together. And it is going to become almost impossible to beat them. It's so funny how this is like the conversation. And I didn't realize that I was such an alarmist or extremist until this conversation.
No, I'm not alarmed at all. I am
Okay.
very
Oh,
well
that's,
aware of
yeah.
how crazy the world is. If people ask me what's the one big lesson I took away from being in a war, and it's three words: people are crazy. That's my life lesson. That's it. People are absolutely nuts. Yeah.
Even the really good people are crazy.
Yeah, well, you got to define what do you mean by good? Depends on who you ask. you know.
No, it's yeah. Okay, I totally agree with that. We're in sync with that. Well, let's just do this. We have to get this out of the way. Brian, it is so nice to meet you.
You
And
too.
thank you for being a guest on my show today. If I wasn't already excited to meet you, now that I know that we have simpatico spirits, I'm even more interested in our conversation. So, if you could just start us off and just kind of, do your branding and let my audience know who you are and what you do.
Yeah, my name is Brian Fleming, and I'm a combat wounded veteran from the war in Afghanistan. I was injured by a suicide bomber back in 2006 in Kandahar, and just about killed me, but didn't. Spent about a year and 2 months in a hospital, and after just burn treatment, reconstructive surgery, all that stuff, I got put out of the military, and for the past about 16, 17 years, I have been able to use my story through public speaking. I learned how to do that in order to solve problems in the world. I learned that each of us has a story, and our stories have the power to transform the world. So what I'm doing now is a lot of people keep asking me, how do I use my story? Because they don't teach me that in high school or college. How do you become a professional speaker? Well, I created userstory.com as a way to help people, primarily trauma survivors and people with unique life stories, but it's not exclusive, but to help them share their story with the world through public speaking, and this is the big key, how to position your story from a place of value.
Absolutely. And, there was two reasons why I was interested in having you on My Best Val. One is, our platform, it's not the Diana Lanham Show. This is truly a platform for people to come on, tell their story about an event that happened in their life that they didn't think they were going to get through, that not only got through it, but it changed their life. And, months, years later, they said, if that thing had not happened to me, I would not have the life that I have now, right? Or I would not
Totally.
be the person that I am now, right? And so, your event in, excuse me, your event in Afghanistan is horrific. And the fact that not only did you get through it, you're using that event and that story to move forward and inspire, motivate others. I mean, you're the perfect guest for me in that regard. And two, I also absolutely agree. One of the pillars of my best Val is that healing, revealing is healing. And that when people can see themselves in your story, that's when they get inspired. And actually, that's where change starts to happen. Because they might not have your exact story or my exact story, but it's enough that either someone that they know and they love is going through it, or they're like, okay, Diana and Brian got through it and they're thriving.
It's that whole thing when you're going through something really tough and you see somebody else who got through something and you realize you're not alone. Like,
You're
oh,
not
they
alone.
made it. Maybe, yeah, they made it through their thing. Maybe I can make it through mine too.
100%. That's why I created my best Val. So you're a twofer for me today. Because I
Oh,
do
I'm
want to
glad to hear it.
unpack I do want to unpack your story a little bit more and kind of break it up. How old were you when you were in Afghanistan?
I was in Afghanistan for about 5.5 months, almost 6 months, at the point that I was injured.
So I don't want to be, exploiting your event, but I just, as you know, not only is it's a horrific thing, but it's also very unique. Not unique to that part of the world, but it's unique to me and unique to a lot of people. We will never be in that position ever to even, not even have that happen, but even ever be there, right? So I want to ask you questions, but I want to make sure that it doesn't look like I'm, it's daytime television. Does that make
No,
sense?
ask anything. I think you're being cautious, and that's important. But literally ask anything. There's nothing off the table. People ask me what it was like in Afghanistan. I just tell them I had a blast. That's where I'm at with it.
Okay.
Because I got
That's exactly what
blasted
you
a
had,
couple
yes.
times, and yeah, there's nothing off the table. I mean, it's these details of real life and struggle and getting through
Okay.
that people really cling on to. So let's dig in as much as you want. Are we going for an hour?
I am not a 20-minute bullet
Yeah.
point thing. We will talk as long as we need to talk to make sure that we're covered with your story. And so that people do understand really the hurdle that you move through. And also, I do want to get back to use your story because I think it's a fantastic idea and I think it's a great business. And I would love to encourage more people to be able to speak about their seminal moment that changed their life, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely. Ask me anything.
okay, I do have to say one thing. Brody, lay down. It's like a kid, this dog. Now that I'm talking, he wants to go in and out, in and out. No, lay down. You're good. Yeah, you're fine. Okay, I love him, but he drives me crazy. Okay, so can you walk us through the day, like how it started? Like, what were you doing and what were you doing? How did it happen? How did it start and begin?
Yeah, I was a team leader in an infantry platoon, a scout sniper platoon with the 10th Mountain Division in Afghanistan, the Army. And the day before the event, it's interesting. I was talking to my wife the night before on the phone for a few minutes, and I told her, I said, I had this weird feeling that whole day. It was weird. You ever get that feeling, like if you're walking through a bad neighborhood, you didn't realize you walked into it, you get this feeling like I shouldn't be here anymore, like I shouldn't
100%.
be where I am. I encountered a bear on my motorcycle on the side of the road in Western Canada about 12 feet away. It was that kind of feeling like, oh, this is a little too close. Well, the night before this happened, I was talking to her, and I just had this feeling like I'm not supposed to be here anymore, like in Afghanistan. I don't know where it came from, totally random. But I'm not leaving without my unit, obviously. And we're not going home right now. And so I thought, well, this is really weird because I've only had that feeling one or two other times in my life. And the next day, I was the truck commander in the lead vehicle of about a 15 vehicle convoy driving through Kandahar, and we were about 2 miles away from the main gate to Kandahar Airfield, big base down there. And a suicide bomber in a minivan drove right up into my door, in my front passenger seat door, and exploded, blew the whole minivan to pieces. It was about lunchtime. Everything went up. I don't remember anything happening. I woke up in a ditch on the side of the road. I was burned and bloody. My helmet had been ripped off my head. Blood pouring out of my face. I was face down when I woke up on the side of the road, Highway 1. And I didn't really know where I was. I didn't know how I got there. My first thought was, why would I go to sleep here? And then I started looking around and thinking, oh, are we in a firefight? But then I realized not only was there nobody shooting anything, which is good, but I didn't have my weapon. It was still in the vehicle, and I was not. And so about a half hour later, the medevac helicopter came in and medically evacuated, medevaced me and my gunner. And yeah, that was July 24th of 2006.
Brian, oh my gosh, your family, when they hear that story, they must be like, how are you even alive? How lucky did they get that you're alive? Was it just you and the gunner that got blown out of the truck?
Yeah, lucky for us, our driver, my buddy Mike, was a medic, and a very good one. And he was not injured. And so he actually, it took me 8 years. I didn't know this because I hadn't seen him in so long after the injury. I learned that he not only got my gunner out of the truck, but he also actually was the one who drug me out of the vehicle. See, I didn't remember anything. I wasn't even conscious. And there was white phosphorus eating through my door from the explosion. The bomber had white phosphorus in some of his explosives, and so he couldn't open my door, and the vehicle was catching on fire. And so my driver, he pulled me up over the radio mount into his driver's seat and out his driver's side door. And that's when I think he left me there on the ground and went attended to my gunner, who was injured worse than me. And then that's when I think I came to at some point.
So you weren't blown from the vehicle. You were rescued from the vehicle.
Yeah, but for years I didn't know that. I just all I knew was I woke up, and when I saw him 7-8 years later, I ran into him in Kuwait at Camp Arifjan on my way back into Afghanistan, doing some civilian stuff. Yeah, well, I was passing through, going back into Afghanistan, and or coming out back in 2013, and we happened to run into each other, and he filled in some details there. Yeah.
Well, thank God for him, right? Like if he'd been injured, who knows? Like it seems like you wouldn't have survived, all three of you, right?
He took care of us. He called in the medevac. I mean, an online medevac is what it's called, and he did. I mean, everything under pressure. He did his job flawless.
Did your gunner survive?
Yeah. Yep. He was a 19-year-old kid. He got burned as well, some. Also took some shrapnel to the face and lost his right eye, but he did survive. I haven't heard from him since we left the hospital, though. I'm not sure. We tried to track him down. We can't seem to find him. But my own injuries were second-degree burns to my face and neck and third-degree burns to both my hands. And, I got to say the military did a great job getting me out and taking care of me, though. I know we hear a lot about, bad VA and medical care in the military. But as far as getting medevaced out of a war zone, I was from Kandahar to San Antonio, Texas in 3 days. And I had 19, 20-year-old kids working on me, keeping me alive the whole time, who, didn't look old enough to wear a uniform. I remember one kid put in a nerve block. I say kid, he was probably 18 or 19. Put a nerve block in my shoulder. And I was in Germany at the time, passing through. And the kid, this guy looked like he was 13 years old. And he's like putting this nerve block into my shoulder. And I didn't feel a thing. He did his job really, really well. And so they really took care of me getting out of there and keeping me alive. It wasn't very peaceful. The pain was intense, and I can go into more of that. But they did what they had to do to keep me alive.
Yeah, so I have heard, I have either read or heard, I just want to make sure that I'm saying something that's correct, that burn victims suffer some of the worst pain. Is that true?
In my experience, there's nothing worse than burning. It is the worst unimaginable, indescribable pain in existence. For me, it was. Well, I'll tell you what was worse than the burns. What was worse than the burns is what they had to do when I got to San Antonio. There's a process called debridement. And if you've ever known anyone who's been severely burned, they have to get the dirty burned skin off you, because if they don't, you could die of infection. And so, my first night at Burke Army Medical Center, they took me in to the shower room, and the head nurse looked at me and said, "Hey, we're gonna have to we'll do this as quickly as possible, so it would be as painless as possible." And I didn't know what he meant. I had no idea, and my medic didn't tell me. He knew, but he didn't tell me. And him and about 2 or 3 other nurses, they all took out razor blades, and they had to start scraping the dirty, burned, charred skin off of my hands, face, and neck, because I would have died of infection. So I'll tell you, that was the absolute worst part of the injury. It wasn't waking up in Kandahar or the burns themselves. It was the having to be skinned alive to stay alive. They said they're going to do it fast as they could. It took about a half hour, and it was the only time in my life I ever prayed to die. I mean, I can put up with a lot, but that was just, my whole thought was, if I can just be unconscious or not awake, it'll be fine. Whether I'm asleep or dead, I don't care. My wife will be fine. I just want to be out of this. It was pretty awful. And I have friends who were burned way worse than me on larger percentages of their bodies. That was way worse than even mine. But, I didn't get what I asked for. I think there's a song out there called Thank God for Unanswered Prayers. And here's the reason I say that. When you're going through something very difficult in your life, you can only see about maybe 5 feet in front of you, metaphorically speaking. You can only see the battle you're in. You're in this fog of war. You're on the battlefield that you're on. You're in your own fight. You can't see everything else all around you 5, 10, 15 years in the future, or how things are going to get better in the ways you can't imagine them getting better. And so, I didn't get what I asked for that day, and I'm grateful. I didn't know what I was asking for, and I've never had a better life since almost losing it that day. Everything is, I've made good decisions. I've had great people come into my life, and I don't take credit for the certain people that have come into my life, because that I had nothing to do with. We happened to collide. Our paths happened to intersect. But I have done a lot of the work in developing myself and learning how to do things. And, that's one of the biggest things I think people need to do when they go through something is, do what you got to do, cry it out, get through it. There's no wrong way to respond to trauma. Everybody responds differently. I was emotionally hardened by my childhood, which actually served me well during and after Afghanistan. But, I had stuff I had to figure out too. And, I had a new direction to go after I found out my story could help people.
What you said is so true. You do not see it when you're in it, right? And a lot of times, that whole forest for the trees thing, right? Mm-hmm. You can't. Sometimes you just can't see it when you're in it. But then afterwards, after you've gotten through it, or started climbing out, you start to see what's ahead and why. How you can use that as a gift, or just how it just made you stronger, better, wiser, right? I want to move forward, but I do want to just say one thing. So why were you not unconscious when they were calling, what did you say? It was what was it called? The
debridement.
The debridement.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's debris. It's debris. They're removing debris. That is even worse to me for some reason now that I know what that is. Why were you not unconscious?
One, they would prefer to put you under anesthesia for it, but they often have to do it multiple times. And there's apparently a fear that if they put you under anesthesia too many times in too close a period of time together, in too close small of a time frame, you could possibly maybe slip into a coma.
Yeah.
So, but now they also have to do it fast because you can go into shock from the pain.
Yeah.
Those are the two answers I've been given, and so fast as they can and be conscious. They gave me fentanyl, I think, or morphine, but all that did was make me feel like I was floating. It didn't numb any pain.
I just can't even imagine going through that kind of pain,
I
even
agree.
on morphine. And if the morphine wasn't working, that shows how much pain you were in, And I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. I mean, I know that you look at the event as a gift. I'm calling it the event. I'm not trying to be in denial about it, but I just feel like that's what it is. So it's, you're looking at it as a gift, it seems like, and it's changed your life in ways that you never would imagine. And like you said, when people start taking a risk and start moving out of their comfort zone or moving away from the person that they were, that they wanted to change, I tell people, I know it's scary and you could fail, and failing is okay because it makes you better, but you never will understand or maybe realize the person that you could be if you move away from who you are now, if you move out of your comfort zone. If you don't take a risk, try some new challenges. Challenging yourself is how we grow. So if you don't move out of that comfort zone and take a risk, you risk losing the person that you might become that is just the better you. And you risk not knowing that there's a better life out there for you. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so, and that's where your story, you were forced out of your comfort zone. You were forced to pivot and change your life, right?
Blasted out of my comfort zone.
You were blasted out of your comfort zone.
You could say that.
Yeah, and if you can't inspire somebody else to say, all I have to do is put down this donut and get my ass off the couch. I'm not recovering from burns and almost died, right? I know that sounds crazy, but sometimes that's what it is. It's, when I read stories about 85-year-old women who are mountain climbing and running marathons and are doing these amazing things. And I'm like, okay, I think I can get up, put my editing, shut my laptop, and go do something outside. Because do you know what I mean? These are the things.
Do you know who a great example of that is? If you listen to Mel Robbins' podcast, if you know who that is.
Yeah, I love Mel Robbins.
Mel Robbins has an episode I was listening to while I was working out at the gym not long ago, and she interviewed her mother-in-law, who I think is 83, 85. The woman, she's in the gym every day. She's got a six-pack or something. She's talking about how she's like, you're like a machine. Like, how do you? I think you would love that episode. Just throwing that out there since you brought it up, but that's a very good example. And here's the thing. Everything in life is a choice. Sometimes the choices suck, but it's a personal choice. You can choose to get up off your ass, off the couch, put down the donut, go to the gym. You can choose to say, hey, I got hit by a suicide bomber. It hurt really bad for a long time. You woke up that day and had a bad year. That's what it was. But what am I going to do? I was 23 years old when I was medically put out of the military. Am I just going to sit on the couch, do nothing with my life? 23, my life was just beginning. I'm just going to sit around as a war veteran with my war veteran hat on, and go down to the local VFW and just drink my life away. Nothing wrong with those VFWs or those people. I'm not saying that, but they're bars. Anyway, I'm pretty sure we all know, drinking your problems away isn't the most productive, best way to live a life that matters. And so, now I'll tell you one thing that I was really fortunate with, though. I had a mentor come into my life. Now, I would have moved forward either way. But this mentor, when I met this mentor, it was like a 1-degree shift in my life, but it was huge. And he was the reason I got into speaking. I never even thought to share my story. Why would I? Who would care about it? What would I say? Why would anyone care? Why? We all have a story. But he was a Vietnam veteran, and he got blown up in Vietnam. and he had been speaking and writing books for 35 years probably at the point that I met him. He came to the medical center and he gave a speech for me and 30, 40 other guys who had been blown up and shot up. Well, him and we hit it off afterwards. Excuse me. We hit it off afterwards. And he said, basically, Brian, if you want, I'll show you how to do something with all this. This is a man who's been very successful in business, an amazing professional speaker. He's married to the same woman for over 50 years, who he married right before he went to Vietnam. Now, I thought, if I can get 10% of that guy's success, who's been in my shoes, I will have lived a pretty good life.
Absolutely.
And he took me under his wing. He showed me how he basically replicated himself. I mean, he what may have taken him 10, 15 years to learn, I probably got in the first 8 or 9 months. Because anything I needed to know how to do, I said, well, how do I do this? How do I do that? And he was just there.
Having a mentor in your life is such a huge, huge bonus. And I mean, I wish there was, I know there are programs out there, but I wish you could actually go on a website and say, this is who I am, this is what I'm looking for. And, it does its thing and it says, these are the top 5 matches for you, almost like Pod Match. This is these are the mentors that fit you, fit your circumstance and who you want to become. And you could just say, and you can tag people. I mean, I would have loved that. I have mentors now that have changed my life. I feel like I would never be where I am now without them. But
Totally.
I just feel like if people could do that early, I think that would make such a change to people's lives. Just, especially when you see somebody, when you meet somebody that you admire and respect them, and you're like, I want to be like that. I think I could do that. I want to be like that. But then you can't go anywhere with it. Like you can't meet them, they're not in your sphere, or you're too shy, or you can't go a step further and get that type of mentor.
Or it's $50,000 to attend their private mastermind group, which
Yes,
most people can't do. Yeah.
100%. I mean, I've done that before too. There are masterminds that I wanted to go to, and I'm like, nope, that's like a house or a car. I'm not going to do that. Yeah.
I've done that once or twice at a really sizable figure, once or twice over the past 15 years. Both times, above and beyond worth it. One of those times, I won't say the figures, one of those times, I doubled the fee I paid the guy in 30 days.
But even with that endorsement that you just said, some people just don't have that money. Like they just don't have it.
Sure.
Right? And it seems like those
how
are the
can you
people
get it?
that need. How can you get it? It is a very sad fact of life that you do have to spend money to make money. And it's
Sometimes.
not like you have to. I'm not talking about PR and branding and all that. I'm talking about sometimes you need to be able to put yourself in a position so that you can take advantage of opportunities. And it's sometimes putting yourself in the position, not just doing a mastermind, but like not being in the small town that you're at, or not. Sometimes it means getting away from your family that's pulling you down, right? Just changing your world around you and your environment, even if it's small to you and I, Brian, it might mean a couple $1,000s to somebody just to get them out of there, or to, and they don't have it, right? And
Yeah.
that's why whenever I can, if somebody needs help from, mentoring from me or whatever, I'm just like, depends on what it is. Because sometimes I tell people, ask me what you're looking for and what you want, because I might not be that person, but I bet you I know somebody that I can connect you with,
Exactly.
And if they can't help you, they'll know somebody who can connect you with. I love that. I love connecting, that whole thing. So, I wanted to ask you a couple things, if you're okay talking about them.
Ask away.
Okay, I know you've said that, but I just want to check every time. So,
Yeah, nothing's off the table.
okay, you said that your childhood prepared you for Afghanistan. What do you mean by that?
Well, I didn't grow up in Mayberry. Well, I had a pretty rough family I came from. It was very lower class in southern Michigan. Um, wasn't a good home situation. My parents divorced when I was 11 or 12. Just to put it in perspective, the county courthouse never had metal detectors at every entrance to the courthouse until my parents' divorce. Oh, the day after. And it was a very violent divorce, definitely mentally traumatic for a kid. There was, said individuals who, I don't know, may have had to get drug out of the courtroom for trying to attack the judge by eight bailiffs, and so then there's that. So this is the kind of place I come from. I went from living sort of out in the country to then living in the city. Definitely honed my survival skills there. And my mother had moved to Florida. I chose not to go with her. And we have a great relationship now. But I ended up going with my father. He eventually went to jail. I was 12, 13 around this time. Lived at my grandma's house, but she was working all the time. So I basically had nobody. And from 13 to about 15, I barely got by. But, going in the military, I say it toughened me, I think mentally, just because I learned at an early age in life I'm truly alone. And if anything is going to happen good for me, I have to make it happen. Nobody's handing anything out to me. Plus, I'm a white male, so in this day and age, I'm apparently the privileged one when I've never been handed a damn thing in my life. And I come from nothing, and nobody's handed me anything. But there's opportunities everywhere. That's what I'm going to say. I don't care who you are. There's opportunities, there's resources, there's ways. If it's a money thing, there's so many ways to make money. I could tell somebody right now how if I had, here, let's do an experiment. If I had to make $2,000 in the next 2 weeks, how could I do that? Here's how I would do it. This is just me, based on my skill set. All right, I know how to put together enough of a presentation, a speech. It's not hard to figure out how to put together a speech. You can Google it. Here's what I would do. I would find a group of people that people care about and want to support. Let's say veterans. And I would look at myself and say, okay, I'm a veteran. I've gotten through war. I survived war. I've dealt with, some post-traumatic stress, but I've learned a few things that helped me. Man, I could probably really coach maybe a few veterans each month, but that takes my time. So, hey, well, I don't want to charge the veteran. So what do you say if I go around in Dallas, where I used to live, there were probably 60 to 100 Lions clubs, Rotary clubs, Kiwanis clubs, social clubs. Probably well over 100 to 200. I would book every single one of those I could. I'd go give a 20-minute talk. Here's who I am. Here's what I'm doing. I want to help veterans overcome, the post-war issues. I want to do coaching for them, but I don't want their money. So my rate is $250 an hour. So for 4 people, that's $1,000. Over the next 2 months, or the next month, I want to mentor 8 local veterans who are open and to coaching and may want advice from someone like them who's figured some things out. So I'll be at the back table afterwards. I'm looking for people who want to support that for them. See me at the table and sign up. You know what? It happens. In fact, I came down here to South Florida, where I'm at right now, years ago. I only had one guaranteed paid booking here. I did exactly that. These social clubs, or one was actually in the back room of a Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. It was some young business leaders event. I had never gone on vacation for 2 weeks and came home with more money than I spent on vacation. And most of those were free gigs. I didn't get paid for them, but I had other ways. So this is what I'm saying. When people say making money is hard, you're not looking in the right place, or you're not looking at it right. Because anybody, like, if you have no money, you can put together, hey, I want to help this group of people, this many of them, like I said, this month, and here's my rate. Will you all help me fund that? And then you go and you get those 7 or 8 veterans that people paid for, and you help them. You give them an hour or 2 of your time a week, whatever it is, whatever the agreement is. And then you go back to those people and say, through email or whatever, or you go back to their club and you say, hey, look, these are the people you helped me bring in. Next thing you know, we have family members coming in saying, wow, this was really helpful. The veteran in my life, like, he's doing better this week. Like, he feels like he's not alone anymore, or he figured out this issue he was dealing with. So, and so then people go, well, man, we want to support this more. What can we do? Now, that takes zero money to do. Not a nickel. None. Zero. You can do that if you live anywhere near a city. You can do that. And if you're helping a group of people that are disenfranchised, or they're not very well benefited or something like that, people want to help groups of people. People want to help other people come up. And so that's just what I would do. Anybody can do that. And so, again, people might be saying, well, Brian, that's easy for you. You're a professional speaker. Yeah, but anybody can put together, the best 20-minute little speech they can and say, look, here's who I am and what I'm doing. I want to help these types of people specifically to get this outcome that would really help them. I don't want their money. Can you help me do that? People start pulling out checkbooks. It's that easy. And so that's how I would do it. So if anyone listening who wants to use your story, that's a good place to start. And it takes nothing. But people aren't taught that. Like what I just said, if I'd have known that when I was 12.
I know. Well, the thing is, it's because you and I, we know what the power of a story. We know about it. It's everything we're, eating and breathing, right? People don't understand how their event that they've gone through, how someone else needs to hear their story. I love that you brought that up. I cannot wait to have people hear that part of the story. Remember I told you were a twofer?
Well, and the thing to realize, though, is that I never got in. I didn't know anyone did this, let alone there was money in it. There's a ton of money in speaking.
How would you know, though? How would you know? Unless you met somebody.
I knew some, and I ran into somebody. But I didn't even get into it for the money. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to explore this as a part of my career path to grow my business. No, I met a lady who had tried to kill herself 2 weeks before I met her because she had been raped and molested and abused her whole life, and she was probably in her mid-20s at that point. And I had spoken for the first time on a stage for 2 minutes. 2 minutes, my mentor put me up. I didn't know he was going to. And there were 3,000 people in that audience. And when I stepped off stage, this young lady walked up to me and told me what happened. And I didn't know what to say to her. I had no advice. But she said after that, at the end of it, she said, but if you can get through all that, referring to Afghanistan, she said, I think I can get through what I'm going through. That lit a fuse in me. Something came out of me I didn't know was there. Again, this wasn't about, I wasn't looking for an opportunity. I didn't know there was a business to be had. That wasn't even my mindset, and it's still not. When you solve problems and do good things in the world, money follows that kind of stuff. Yeah. I mean, if I'm hungry and I go to Chick-fil-A down the street, they solved the problem. I was hungry. And so, I'm hungry. They have something to solve that problem, so I'll give them money. They'll make me not hungry anymore. Yeah. It's that simple. This is the beauty of capitalism. And if you don't like how I give it to you, you can go get it from someone else, and then I lose your business. So it's like, to me, it's the fairest thing in the world. But you can do good things, and people want to support it. And when you're doing good things, people want to talk about what you're doing. Again, there's no marketing in this. Be a good person. Do something good with your life. And it works naturally. This is how we're wired, And once I realized that young lady wasn't going to go home and kill herself that night, that's where I told Dave, I said, my mentor, I said, I don't know what happened tonight, but I have to do this. Like, I'm going to do this or die trying. Will you help me? And he said, absolutely, I'll show you. And he did. The money is the grease on the machine, by the way, that makes everything you do possible. It's not about the money, but the machine spreading your message and helping people. You can't spread it if there's no funding. You have to be financially productive to do anything nowadays. And that's where that comes in.
So how long have you been a public speaker, a motivational speaker? How long have you been doing that now?
Well, I got out of the military in late 2007, 2008, so probably about 16 and a half years. It's 2024 right now.
Yeah. Wow. Isn't that amazing? Like when you think back to as a 23-year-old just going to Afghanistan and what you thought your life was about, and then laying in that hospital going, my life is over. My life is over. What am I going to do now, right? And then you think about who you are now and the experiences that you've had and the people that you've met and the people that your story and your grace has touched since you got out of the hospital. It's pretty astonishing, and it's such a good story. It makes me happy. Fills my heart.
I'm glad to hear it. You know, I see my own flaws more than anybody, but I'll tell you right now, I couldn't be happier with the person I am today yet. I'm still very well aware of the fact I have a lot to work on. But going from who I was, yeah, I mean, I wasn't an absolutely terrible person. I mean, some people you ask, I definitely was when I was younger. But I'm proud of the person I am today. I'm glad I become who I am. And all of my experiences shaped me into that. And a lot of things I thought matter in life, they get blasted and blown away when everything hits the fan and you realize what's important. And, you know, a lot of people, they get to be in their 70s and 80s and they look back and they say, you know, if I could do it all over, I would do this or that. But they can't, because the clock is against them. You can't become young again. I had that experience in my early 20s. That's one of the greatest gifts, the realization. Because I thought when I woke up in that ditch, I didn't think I was going to make it out of Afghanistan. I asked my medic, how am I doing? Am I good? And he said yes, but his eyes, I could tell, had a very different concern. And I felt like his eyes were lying to me, but he was doing what he was supposed to do. And I thought to myself in that moment, damn, like, this is it. I'm going to die in this fucking country, this godforsaken country, and like I'm 22 or whatever. Like, I'm so young. Like, so many things I wanted to do that I should have tried. I didn't even try. So like I had fear of failing with something. So I didn't even try. But what's the matter if I failed? Like, I didn't even try. So I never know what I would have become. And also the other thought was, what did I do for other people? Because that was the big thing that came to the forefront of my mind when I thought I was about to die. I felt like I lived my life very selfishly for me. I don't think that's entirely true, but I'm pretty hard on myself. But it was, what did I do for other people while I was here? Because I felt like in that moment, that was sort of the only thing I'm really going to leave behind, any semblance that I ever existed. And I couldn't answer that question, and it terrified me. I had this immediate sense of intense, irreversible regret that I can't do it over. And I guess that's just the story. Like, I blew it. And you know what? I didn't die. And so that's the fire in me now. It's like, it's the whole fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. It's like, if I get in my 70s or 80s and I'm saying that to myself again, it's my own damn fault. Yeah. Because I had the I wouldn't say privilege, the painful privilege, very young, to have the experience to know that the questions I'm going to ask on my deathbed, if I don't make this thing count called life. And right now, I'll tell you, I'm very fulfilled. I have more aspirations. I'll never be able to do enough, but I've done quite a bit, and I have more aspirations, and I hope to die doing something I love.
Yeah. I love that. And you know, you're talking about being a selfish person. If you are growing up in an environment where you need to protect yourself and you need to survive, and you had to tell in the dialogue that you were telling yourself, no one's going to give me anything. If I'm going to do anything, it's all me. I am saving myself, and no one's coming to rescue me, right? So when you grow up in that kind of bubble around yourself, you do become selfish because you've decided that you need to be self-centric to survive. And so you create that, right? So I think you need to give yourself a little bit of grace about that, because
I agree.
We are at some point, we are our environment until we're strong enough and self-aware enough to move away from it. but it is a very hard thing. And the fact that I know this event caused that shift in you, but for people to break away from the persona, the armor that they put on to protect themselves in childhood, that is also one of the toughest things to change.
And I'll tell you something about that.
But yours got blasted away.
Yeah, that not only that, but it feels so good to be able to feel again. It feels so good to feel again, because for years after the military, like, I'm not a super emotional person. Very, very little do I ever show emotion or cry or anything like that. Usually I'm alone in the car and a song comes on and I have no idea what hit me about it. Something like that, but I'm 39 right now. I'll be 40 this year. And I think around 30 years old, I started to look deeper into myself and realize, I don't know, something more transparent about myself. There's nothing to hide. Like, kind of like, you fool, what do you think you're hiding? Like, nobody's hiding anything.
Yeah.
But, there was, when I found out my roommate was killed in Iraq, that was one of the worst times. That hurt me worse on the inside than my own injury. And then, I would say more recently, the thing that got me was, I did not expect this. I'm a sucker for great song lyrics. When people can take such deep stuff and say it in a word or a line, I'm just so blown away. There's a song by David Archuleta that came out a few months ago. He won, I think, American Idol, or he was on American Idol.
Yeah, I knew David Archuleta.
Okay, well, you what?
I'm a fan.
Oh, yeah, me too.
I voted for him.
Yeah. Well, a few months ago, or this past year, he came out, and he comes from a Mormon background.
Yeah.
And his mother, said, "I love you, but I can't support that." And he came out publicly. He wanted to date a man. He's at a point. He's like, "I've fought this my whole life. I can't. It's who I am." So a few days went by, and he gets a call from her, and she goes, "You know what? I don't want to be part of an organization that doesn't welcome my children. And if you're going to go to hell, we'll go to hell together."
Oh, my God.
He wrote a song called Hell Together. You go listen. He rededicated it to his mother.
I'm going to listen to that when we're done with this conversation. Yeah. I love it.
Unfucking believable lyrics, the music, and the guy's voice. I mean, independently, those things are just off the charts incredible. And he wrapped them into 1 2.5 minute song. And oh yeah, I'm a straight guy. I've been married to my wife for 18.5 years. I don't relate to that at all, but I think what I related to was having to let go. There's a part of the song he says something about he's afraid of letting go of the version of himself that he used to know.
Yes.
And I know there's parts of me that I've had to let die to become who I am. And not only did I maybe like those parts of me, but they weren't good, but they were parts of me that other people came to know and love and accept that are not me anymore. It's not who I really truly am. It's who I was, back then. But that's what I mean when I say it feels so good to feel again. If you're living an emotionless life, you're not a tough guy. You're probably hurting yourself and the people around you more than you know. But you need to find your outlets, and maybe you're just in a car sitting at a red light in Boca Raton, Florida, and David Archuleta comes on the radio,
No, I love that. And can I tell you something? Because I'm a mom, and the fact that his mother has so much love for her son and realized that's the thing that makes the world go round, and it was more important for her to keep her child close and, have love for her child than something that was destructive and negative.
Yeah. You know what?
I'm a victim of religious fervor with my mother. So just
ditto.
makes me emotional. Yeah. So I love that. I can't wait to listen to the song.
Well, and I'll tell you this too. if you go to walkedthroughhell.com, while we're on the topic of songs, if you go to walkedthroughhell.com, that forwards to a YouTube video. And a couple years ago, I had the opportunity to go write a song in Nashville. And a guy named Barry Zito used to be a baseball player, a very good baseball player. He's now a songwriter in Nashville, and he helped me co-write the song along with a couple other guys, and he sings a song. And it's about walking through hell and getting through it. And it's based on my life experience, my war experience. So if anyone wants to hear a song that might touch you and move you, I wasn't the only writer based on my war experience and my injury. If you go to walkedthroughhell.com, or you can go on YouTube and Walked Through Hell, and the organization is called Creative Vets, that actually brought me to Nashville to have that experience.
I love that. I don't know. I just love that. And then especially when you're talking about songs and lyrics and things like that. And then you wrote a song. I was like, what? You're not going to start with that?
I forgot about it. I didn't even think to talk about it until we brought up that other one.
Oh, I love that. So do you have, I keep saying I love that, but I do. I love everything. I'm just who I am. I
love that.
So, so clever.
Genuinely. I really do.
Oh, good. Thank you. So I love that you've been married to your wife, stuck with you through everything, and that you guys are still together. And I love that for you. And do you have any children?
Yeah, I have a 15-year-old boy and a 13-year-old daughter that's right over here, actually, who's in Florida with me right now. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yep. Can they poke their heads in and say hi?
Hey, Kaylee, come here. Hey, Kaylee, come here. Come here real quick.
Just pop in and say hi.
She wants to say hello to you. This is my daughter, Kaylee.
Kaylee, hi. Nice to meet you.
She said hi, and it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
That's okay. That's okay. You don't have to hang out and go crazy. My daughter's here visiting me, and she would have killed me if I'd done that. She'd be like, what?
Oh, no. This one, she's a future leader. She's outspoken. She's type A like me. Yeah, no worries there.
Don't you love that, the man that you are now is what your kids are going to see and grow up thinking, that's going to shape their world about who they want to be and how they want to walk through the world. Who would have thought that growing up with your childhood and having all this happen, that you now have, none of us are fully baked humans, right? We're always learning and developing.
For sure.
But the things that you love most about yourself, that you're bringing out, your kids get to see it, and they're going to grow up with that.
Yeah, I try to give them the best of it, and they see the worst of it too. So I try to mitigate damage control and do the best I can. And I think that's all any of us can do. Some days I'll even say, I can't wait for you to have kids someday. And I'm just going to sit back and watch and have a milkshake.
My mom used to say that to us all the time, because there was 9 of us when we were growing up in the house, and she would say,
"Oh wow,
I just can't wait for you to have kids of your own." And she goes, "And I'm just going to laugh when you're like crying and going, oh, kids are awful, they did this." She's just going to be laughing. She goes, "I'm going to have my drink and I'm just going to laugh." And now I understand it, right? I totally get it. I only have one, because I knew that growing up with all those kids in our family, which was such a great way to grow up, but I always knew I just wanted to have one child, because we had to basically stand in line to get our mom and dad's attention, right? And so I just have one, and I can barely manage one. But no, I love her.
And did you get one just like you?
Pretty much. But you know what? I have to say, she's got her, I think some of the really good things about her that are, maybe my weaknesses, she gets from her father. And so she's a really good balance. But
that's really awesome.
Yeah. I mean, she's got her things. There's times when I'm just like, but Is
she grown? Is she grown now?
She's 21. She's 21 and a half. She's here visiting.
Okay.
She goes to school in Tucson. So she's here visiting for just a couple of weeks, which is my favorite time of the year, is when I get to see her and stuff. But I'm proud of her. And I think so much of her. And so I don't want her to hear this, but I love it when she says to me, makes me emotional. When she said, "Oh, Mom, I learned that from you," and she goes, or she'll say, "I see how you like work the problem and just make things happen." And she goes, "And I realize that's what I want to do, and that's how I am. And when I'm struggling and stuff, and I just think, what would my mom do? And my mom would get through this." And I'm just like,
Oh, wow.
I'm just like, grasshopper. Makes me happy.
Well, that tells you you didn't do too bad of a job,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is always nice to hear.
Yeah, but there's other parts she just blew me because there are other parts to her that she totally her dad, not me, and they're all good stuff, right? When she fixes things or has a thought about something that I'm like, was struggling with, I'm like, and that's her dad. she got that. So, anyways, do you want to come?
Good,
and say
best
hello
of both worlds.
to Brian? I made him bring his daughter in. Do you want to say hi? He just woke up and he came in at 2:00. But...
Hello.
Hey there. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Hey,
She's in
good to meet
pajamas.
you.
It's good to meet you.
Yeah,
too.
how's college going for you?
It's good.
Good?
Just living the lifestyle, Coming
I
in
understand
late,
completely.
late. Yeah. Not conducive to her schedule, but I try.
No, it's okay.
Is-
I'm just happy that you're here. So,
Is
All
that
right,
a Van Halen t-shirt?
It is a Van Halen t-shirt.
I saw Van. That is awesome.
Thank you.
I grew up on-
found it at Ross.
I grew up on classic rock and radar movies, so yeah, I grew up on Van
Yeah.
Halen. Love
So
it.
did
I'm glad to
I.
see your mother raised you right in that way too.
well, I have to tell you, big Van Halen fan, but her dad is a total metalhead. And
Ah.
she got she's got fantastic music taste, but she's a hardcore metalhead, and she got that from her dad. But I'm Van Halen. I'm Sammy Hagar Van Halen.
You're Van Hagar. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're-
Oh, I love that Van Hagar. Yeah. Oh my God, his voice. I just love him. Yeah. So, I have to tell you,
Keep on rocking.
Thank you. You too.
There we go.
thanks, Ryan.
Nice meeting you.
You too.
I'm trying to think. I had one other thing I wanted to ask you. It was taking you back to Afghanistan because I was like, oh, that was interesting. Oh, I think it was. So, were you a sniper?
I was in a scout sniper platoon. I was a team leader in one of the scout squads. So we were trained on long range reconnaissance, things like that. So a lot of us, we cross trained a lot of things though.
So
But it
you
was
manned
basically,
the snipers.
every infantry general, like infantry battalion, has like a headquarters, like scout and sniper platoon in the army, and so it's the main mission is usually like reconnaissance, and so it entails sometimes sniper operations, but the scout squad, scout snipers, they're separate, but they're kind of like together. So basically, the mission was so often put in the orders: identify or deny enemy presence. That basically means go out there, and if you get shot at or blown up, it means they're there. So, yup, they're here was often sometimes the case. Other times it's
Well,
like
no.
there's nothing out here but goats walking through the middle of nowhere.
But you know what you have? Remember, you had that gut, that feeling. Like you definitely have a radar inside of you. You have a danger radar, right?
I think that's the perk of rough life experiences. It sharpens you quick.
I'm almost afraid to make a comment because I feel like it's going to lead us down another rabbit hole, right? So, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I absolutely appreciate it, and there's so many things that I'm taking away from the business side of our conversation. I love it, and I can't wait to kind of dive deeper into just like who you are in your business. And I think I have some questions. Actually, I might follow up with you. I think I might become one of your clients. So,
Hey,
but
absolutely
anyways,
happy to help.
I really like your vibe, and I like your business aesthetic. So, I think that we will be in touch after this for sure. But what I wanted to ask you, and I usually ask my guests this because my best fail is all about it's about storytelling, but it's also there needs to be a lesson learned, in the story. It has to be something that people can take away from your story, which obviously, we have that. But if you could say anything else to my audience out there to inspire them or motivate them to just move forward to a better self in life. I know you've said a lot already, but do you have anything else that you just feel like you want to impart?
Do something with your life that is deeply meaningful to you, and trust yourself over other people's advice. I'm not saying don't get advice or guidance from people who could be better than you at something. I'm not saying that. Obviously, I've had mentors. But if you feel like you want to do something with your life, you feel really deeply called or led in a certain direction, even if it doesn't make sense to people around you, trust yourself. Because, to be honest, most people have no idea what the hell they're talking about for their own life, let alone yours. I wish I would have realized that way earlier in my life. But I'll tell you that the big hang up I've had with doing that in my life, I'm pretty much past it now, but it still kind of haunts me. I know the people who have invested in me to help me get to where I am, and it was the fear that I would disappoint the people who would put time and effort into me that helped me become who I am. But then I had to realize too, they're a human like me. I can't live my life for them. To live up to their expectation, even if, and this is all in my head. It's not even that they would have as big of a problem. It's a perceived thing of what if I disappoint people who I respect, who help me get where I am. And so you get to a point where I think for me at least, the pressure to do that meeting, running into me not doing the next thing I feel led to do, is where I've had to just cut that rope. Trust yourself over other people. And when it falls apart and doesn't work, adapt, figure it out, put it back together, keep going. You're going to have stuff fall apart on the way to where you're going. That's part of life. The strongest species, as it was always said, I think it was a Darwin thing. It's not the strongest species that survives. It's the one that's able to adapt the fastest. And if you try something, it doesn't work, well, most new things don't work the first time. Be bad at something you're trying to do, a few times to get better at it, because naturally you will. But follow where you want to go. All those people saying don't trust your heart and your heart's bad and all that horse shit, like follow your own tune. Like follow the path you feel led down. This is your life, and nobody's more qualified than you. Take advice, but realize 80% of it's probably going to suck, but you might have to crawl through all that to get to the 20% that really helps you. That's been my experience.
I love that whole sentiment. Follow your heart, follow your gut. If you feel really strongly about something, but you have naysayers around you, have the strength to just walk your own path. Or at least
and
once.
here's the thing.
Try it.
Yeah, because I grew up very religious, and it was the whole you're naturally bad, can't trust your heart's deceptive, and all this stuff. I trusted my heart when I joined the military during a time of war in Afghanistan as infantry. I trusted my heart when I met my wife on the internet. We talked for 8 months. We met for a week and got married 3 months later, and we're here almost 19 years later, happier than all the people who doubted us, who are now divorced. Yeah.
I love that.
I trusted my heart when I went into speaking. I felt led. I trusted my heart. So many things we've been told, we need to stop repeating that shit. Because I'm at a point where I'm just in life where I'm not going by any old advice I was given. I will test the old advice, and I will dismiss it if it's no longer good for me or helpful. And I'm finding I do better when I do shit my way. Frank Sinatra had it right. I did it my way. People say, well, that sounds really selfish. Yeah, well, you know what? I'm not miserable, because when you're not doing it your way, you're fucking miserable. Because you should be doing something else, but you're not, because, well, what will mom and dad think, or what would the church people think, or whoever. We need to stop giving so much credit to other people above ourselves. We know ourselves better than anyone else. And at the end of the day, this is your life, and you got, as far as I know, this one shot. So, do you.
Do you? I love that. Oh, that's awesome. So many things that you have said today are just just mirror the whole reason I started My Best Val and what I hope that people will get out of My Best Val. So I absolutely, I loved having you here today. And I really believe that you are going to, not just with me, but, moving forward and your other, the motivation that you're putting out there and the energy that you're putting out there, you're definitely changing lives. I love that. So.
Well, I've learned that the greatest sense of meaning I get in my life is when I help other people win a battle they're facing. Which, by the way, if any of your listeners are wondering, like so many people and so many of my audiences have wondered over the years, how can they use their story? Maybe they're listening to this saying, I have this story or I have a bunch of stories. Well, how do I pick one? And how do I position it from a place of value so I can start sharing my story? Because it's not just good for other people. When they hear it, it's good for you. Well, if your listeners want, I do have a free resource. If they go to useyourstory.com, I have what's called the Share Your Story Roadmap. It's free. I'm not charging anything for it. But if you go and get that, it's a one-page PDF and about a 14-minute video that goes with it. And I'll show you exactly how to share your story and make your first $500 speaking. So if anybody's interested in doing that, again, this is free. I can charge for this. I'm not. It's free. Just go to useyourstory.com, grab the free Share Your Story Roadmap, and you can literally just go out and you can do what I do and share your story, and you're going to see that your story has the power to transform our world. Not because there's any ego in it, but people don't necessarily relate to what you went through if they didn't go through the same thing. But there's a small, finite number of issues that human beings deal with as a result of the traumas and challenges we face. That is what everybody relates to. It transcends language, racial, ethnic, cultural barriers. Everybody speaks the language of pain and suffering and struggle. And when you get out there and you're sharing your story and you're doing it for a cause, for a reason, trying to solve some particular problem that the world has, people welcome you with open arms. They love you for it, and they want to do anything they can to get you to where they are and help you help them more. And that is the greatest and most fulfilling life I've discovered for myself.
And you're not miserable.
And I'm not miserable.
You're walking your own path, yeah.
Stop taking so much bad advice.
Yes. Well, Brian, thank you so much. I mean, I feel like I'm just piling on, but I absolutely enjoyed our conversation today. And
me too.
And I'm looking forward to, as an audience member too, going through some of your things and finding out even more about you. And hopefully we will be able to connect again sometime in the future, maybe at a conference or a panel or something like that. But I appreciate the time, and I appreciate the stories.
Hey, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love talking to people like you because I can tell you're a thinking person. And I love talking to people who are thinking people. So let's absolutely connect and stay in touch.
The conspiracy theorists that connected us.
Probably. But is it conspiracy if it ends up being true?
That's right. So, all right. Well, have a great, wonderful rest of your day. And, goodbye to your children as well. And I wish you well. All right.
I wish you well also. Thanks for having me on, Diana.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Would you like to be a guest on our show? If you have a story to tell, send us an email at contact@mybestval.tv. If we think it's a good fit, we'll reach out.